Welcome to Lovin' Life's Journey DIY. I'm Chantel. Thank you so much for tuning in. In today's video, I am going to be making 3 really fun fall projects, and I am super excited to share them with you. So let's jump in and get started.
For this project, I will be using one of these galvanized bottle cap signs from Dollar Tree and some of this Waterslide Decal Paper from Hiipoo. I would like to say a big thank you to Hiipoo for sponsoring today's video. This Waterslide Decal Paper is so easy to use, and I'm really excited to show you how. You can add just about any image onto a project by printing it on this paper using an inkjet printer and then transferring it to your project. And I was really impressed with the quality of my image when it printed on this paper, and it was really easy to transfer to my projects as well. So let me show you how fun and easy this is to use. When you put this paper in your printer, you do want to make sure that you put it in so that it prints on the shiny side. And this paper is basically 8.5 by 11, so it should fit in any printer. Your printer does need to be an inkjet printer for this to work, but the design prints off beautifully on this as long as you're using a high quality image. And I was really impressed with how vivid the colors were and just how nice it really looked. So I have started creating some of my own downloadable printables, and I have put those in an Etsy shop. This is one of them that is on there. There's several different versions of it that has the scripture or also one without, and I'm using a part of that design for this project today, and that is on there as well. The Waterslide paper comes with great instructions, and on the instructions it says to give your project 3 coats of matte sealer spray, and this is to seal that ink because the ink in your printer is not waterproof necessarily, so this will help seal the ink, keep it from running. So I'm going to do 3 light coats of this matte sealer, and I'm going to wait until each coat is completely dry. And it says to wait about 10 minutes. You want to make sure that each coat is dry. You can also use a blow dryer on a low setting to help speed up this drying process. And I did go ahead and spray my other 2 designs for the next project, so here's a sneak peek of what's to come. But stay tuned because this doesn't tell you really anything about what I'm going to do with these, and I'm really excited to show you. Once the matte sealer is completely dry, then I'm going to cut out my design, and the instructions say to leave at least 1/8 of an inch around your design. I left a little bit more, but I just cut this out. Next, I'm going to place this in some just room temperature water, and the paper does curl up. That's totally fine. And you're going to leave it in there for about 30 to 60 seconds. I left mine in a little bit longer. I think that works a little bit better. And once it starts absorbing the water, then the design will kind of relax and not curl up as much. But after about 60 seconds, then I'm going to take my design out of the water. I'm going to put a little bit of water on my project just to make it easier to transfer to, and then I'm just going to use my finger and my thumb and just slide that design up a little bit, and then grab the paper on the bottom edge and just slide it right out from under that design, and it slides out so easy. It works really well. I expected this to be wrinkly, and I expected it to maybe tear, but it did not. It worked great. And then I'm gently going to dab some of the excess water out from under, kind of push it out from under that design and just dab any excess water away. And then I'm going to set that aside and let it completely dry for at least 3 hours. Once it is completely dry, then I am going to add some embellishments. I'm going to create a bow using this black and white checked ribbon from Dollar Tree, just looping it back and forth till I have 5 loops on each side, and add a center loop. And then I'm going to use a piece of floral wire just to tie around the center and twist it real tight to keep the bow all together. Then I'm going to fluff out the bow just by pulling on some of those loops, and I will hot glue that to the top of my little bottle cap sign. And I did want to add a little bit more color to this. I wanted something with some orange in it to kind of bring out those pumpkins. So I'm using some of this berry garland from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to wrap it around a pencil and kind of make it a little curly cues, and just do a couple of those and tuck them underneath the bow and glue them in just to add just a little bit more color. For this next project, I will be using one of these 11 by 14 artist canvas boards from Dollar Tree. I will also be using 4 of these paint stir sticks. These are the larger ones, the 5-gallon paint stir sticks, and you can get them at Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's. And I found this peel and stick wallpaper at Dollar Tree. I'm going to be using 1 sheet of this. A couple other things I'll be using are these pumpkins, one of these little pumpkin signs from Dollar Tree, as well as one of the pumpkins off of this little hanging pumpkin football sign, also from Dollar Tree. You really don't need these exact ones, just a couple of pumpkin shapes that are 2 different sizes will work. So first I'm going to adhere my adhesive wallpaper to the canvas board, and it's a little bit longer. It's the perfect width, but just a little bit longer, so I'm just marking and cutting off the excess of that wallpaper sheet, and then I am going to stick that to actually the back side of the canvas board because I think it will stick better to that instead of trying to stick it to the actual canvas, which has more of a texture to it. And once I got my edges lined up on this peel and stick wallpaper, it was very easy to put down. I didn't end up with any bubbles or wrinkles or anything. I thought this worked really well. I'm going to need to cut down my paint stir sticks, so I am marking them so that they are 1 inch longer on each side for the top and the bottom. So the canvas is 14, so I'm marking these at 16 inches, and I'll cut 2 at 16 inches. And I thought I was going to assemble this a little bit differently than I actually ended up doing. So the 2 side pieces you want to cut at 14 inches. So you'll have 2 at 16 and 2 at 14. And I just used my miter box and saw to cut these off. This is a great tool. I highly recommend getting one to have in your crafting tools. It just makes projects like this really easy. Then I'm going to use a little piece of sandpaper and just smooth out those cut edges, get any splinters or rough places all smoothed out. Next, I'm going to paint the tops and the sides of my stir sticks with some black chalk paint. While those are drying, I'm going to take my little pumpkin sign and remove the little stand. It just pulls right off. I'm going to remove the label from the back because I am going to be painting the back, and this is the side that we're going to see. So I'm going to make sure I get all of the label and the adhesive off of that. And I am going to remove that little sunflower piece that is on the pumpkin. And I was going to remove the bow as well, but I decided to leave it on, and I'm just going to hot glue it out of the way so it doesn't show from the other side. And then I'm also going to hot glue that little sunflower back onto the pumpkin, but I'm going to put it in the center of the pumpkin. And these are just going to help hold the pumpkin up off of my project just to give it a little bit more dimension. The edges of this pumpkin were a little bit rough, so I did go over it with some sandpaper also. Then I'm going to paint this pumpkin using some ivory, or this is called chiffon cream chalk paint, just an off-white chalk paint, and I did have to do 2 coats on this. Then I'm going to take one of the pumpkins off of that pumpkin and football hanging sign, and I am going to paint the back side of it a sage green color. Again, I went over it with some sandpaper, and going over where the little staple holes are with the sandpaper really just filled them in and you don't even see them. I'm using a chalk paint. You could use just an acrylic craft paint as well. And I am just painting the back side and around the edges. So here's a little tip. If your paint seems dry, if you touch it, if you put your hand on it and it still feels cold, then it is not completely dry. And so if you touch it and it feels just room temperature, then it's dry, but if it still feels cold, not dry yet. So while the first coat of paint is drying on that white pumpkin, I am going to go in and do a little bit of dry brushing with the off-white paint onto my black frame pieces. And I went a little heavy on this, and I actually went a little too heavy and had to go back and darken it up a little bit. Okay, now my pumpkin is dry, so I'm going to add that second coat of paint on this. Then I'm going to add some dry brushing with the white paint on my green pumpkin. I'm going to go around the edges, and then I'm going to add some dry brush lines, but I'm going to do them kind of down in a curved motion so that it kind of shows the shape of the pumpkin, kind of giving it a rounded look. This will just give it a little bit more of a three-dimensional look. Once that second coat of paint is dry on the white pumpkin, I am going to do the same type of dry brushing, but I'm using the green paint that I used on the other pumpkin for the dry brushing on this, and I'm going to do those curved lines as well. So I didn't think my frame pieces had enough contrast between them and that wood background, so I did decide to go ahead and darken them up a little bit. I'm still letting some of that dry brush that I did earlier show through so that they still have that aged look, but I just darkened them up a little bit. So instead of gluing my frame pieces onto just the wallpaper, I decided to use a razor knife and just trim a little bit of the wallpaper away so that I can glue those frame pieces to the canvas board itself. I felt like this would just make it a little bit stronger. I'm not sure this was really necessary, however, because the wallpaper was pretty stuck down to the canvas board. I'm going to glue the top and bottom pieces on first, and here I'm just making sure that I have an inch overlap on each side so that my frame piece is centered, and then I'm going to just adhere this with some hot glue. I always use Gorilla Glue sticks in my glue gun just because they hold better, but I think regular hot glue would be fine for this too. Next, I'm going to add my side pieces. I'm going to line the outside edge of the stick up with the outside edge of the canvas, and this is going to leave an overlap. I like the way this looked. It kind of looked like a crate maybe to me, and I'm just making sure that it's centered, and then I'm going to attach it with hot glue. And then I'll repeat the same thing with the other side. So now I'm going to position my pumpkins where I will be attaching them, but I am not going to attach them yet. So I'm just positioning them, and then I'm going to see where I want to place my wording. And here is where that Waterslide Decal Paper comes in. I've cut out this design that I printed out that says Happy Harvest, and I'm just positioning that where I want it. I think it will be easier to put this on if the pumpkins are not attached, so I'm going to just position it and then I'll remove those pumpkins so that I can attach it a little bit easier. So again, I'm going to take my decal and I'm placing it in the room temperature water for 60 seconds. After 60 seconds, I will take it out and I'm going to again put just a tiny bit of water on my project and then position my decal where I want it. Now that I have it where I want it, I'm going to take those pumpkins off of the project so it will be easier to put my decal on. And again, I am just going to be sliding that paper right out from under the design. And this is positionable a little bit after you get it slid out, as long as you have enough moisture on it. So you can kind of move it around a little bit carefully right at first. But again, it just went on so easy. I think this is a great alternative. If you don't have a cutting machine where you can do vinyl or something like that, this is an amazing alternative to that. You can do so many different projects with this, and I will put the link to it in the description box below. The Hiipoo Waterslide transfer paper is very affordable. You get 20 sheets in a package and you could do tons and tons of projects with it. And you can basically do any design that you can print on your printer. And look how nice this looks. I am very, very impressed. Before I attach my pumpkins, I'm going to add a little bit of detail to the edges using a Sharpie marker and just doing some broken dotted lines, longer and shorter kind of squiggly lines around this, just to kind of outline the pumpkin and really make it stand out. And then I'm also going to put some curved lines down the center of the pumpkin to give it that more dimensional look as well. And I did the same thing to the green pumpkin. Now I'm going to attach my pumpkins, so I will glue the larger pumpkin right up against the frame on the right hand side. And then I'm going to take a couple of these tumbling tower blocks and I'm going to use these as spacers to lift that green pumpkin up higher so that I can set it up over the top of the frame. And I'm going to glue the little blocks down and then glue the pumpkin on top of that. And I love the three-dimensional look that this has. I'm going to glue a little bit of Spanish moss to the bottom of the white pumpkin. I also tied a simple little bow from that black and white checked ribbon, and I'm hot gluing that to the top of the white pumpkin. I wanted to add a little something to the green pumpkin, so I am taking this thin jute twine and I'm going to wrap it around the stem 3 or 4 times, just tie a little knot, and then trim off the ends. The last step is to add a hanger, so I am going to use a little bit thicker jute twine and I am going to thread this underneath the side piece because it's sitting on those top and bottom pieces, so there is a gap, so you can just thread it through there. And then I'm going to make a little crisscross on the front of the frame on those corners, tie them in the back, and then leave enough for a hanger, and then I will put it through on the other side, make the crisscross and tie it off. And that's an easy way and a decorative way to make a really cute hanger. And after I did this, I just had to put the little crisscross jute twine on the bottom corners as well, just to finish it off. And I love, love, love how this turned out. And I love how that water slide decal looks on here. Just a fun project all the way around. I loved making this. Well, since that last project was a little bit more involved, let's end with an easier project. For this, I am using one of those bamboo cutting boards from Dollar Tree. This design is another one that I have created, and it is available in my Etsy shop, and that link is in the description box below. If you like these designs and you want to help support my channel, that's one way that you can do it, and they're pretty affordable, so you can check those out. And again, I am just cutting around the designs, leaving at least 1/8 of an inch. Then I'm going to put my design in the water for 60 seconds, and then I will take it out of the water and adhere it to my project. I'm going to be centering the Hello Fall with the little wreath around it in the center of my cutting board, and then I'll be adding those other details at the top and the bottom. So I'm going to add just a little bit of water to my surface, and then I'm going to slide that decal up so there's a little edge showing, and then I'll position that onto my project, and then I'm just going to slide that paper right out from the bottom, and again it just adheres to the project so nicely, and then dry off the excess water, and then I'm going to add those other top and bottom designs, and that's all I'm going to do to this. I just wanted a little sign. You could put a hanger on the back. I didn't. I just put it so I could sit it on a shelf, but I really like how this looks. You obviously cannot use it as a cutting board. It's just decorative, but I think it's really pretty. And the Waterslide Decal Paper makes this a super easy project. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. It really helps my channel to grow. Also be sure to check out those links in the description box for the Waterslide Decal Paper and also for my printables on Etsy. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a blessed day.